going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports MLB Swing for the Fences show. I'm your host, Mangone. We gave Holden the boot. He's out of here. No, I'm just kidding. He is going to be doing my Thursday show. So I'm covering him today. I'm typically going to be on Thursdays with Draftcheat. I'm here with TitleTown. Draftcheat, I'll go over to you first. How's it going over there, man?
Things are good, man, and they just got better. When I saw you show up here on the show as host, I'm excited to actually, be talking sports. We don't need to be talking illicit, illegal drugs and all that stuff. So yeah, a good Tuesday afternoon. Got some day baseball going on, and ready for hopefully another winning slate tonight.
Yeah, we'll do our best to keep it on task. TitleTown, I'll head on over to you. How are you doing? Are you excited? It's a day with Coors Field, right? So TitleTown's excited for some baseball.
Yeah, I mean, the joke is I'm on the show today because Coors is back on the slate, but it's not the Coors slate that we're used to. I mean, it's the worst hitting weather there is. It's going to be in the 30s. I'm not too worried about a postponement, but I mean, it is in the realm of possibilities, I guess. But Coors offsets the weather. It's not the most standout spot though, but excited to talk baseball. 8-game slate should be fun. Have some good pitching up top, some cheap stacks to talk about. So I like this slate and I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, excited to dive in. We got Abrasive said do-rag, Mango. This is definitely not a do-rag. I don't think you'll catch me wearing a do-rag ever. It's just we're turning the hat backwards, right? So trying to using the other Run Pure hat that you can get, you can head on over to the Run Pure shop and buy, right? We have tons of great Run Pure swag over there. DC, I know you're still waiting to get that swag. Are you looking for a do-rag? You want a Run Pure do-rag?
Yeah, man, I could rock the do-rag. I think that would fit my personality pretty well.
Yeah, I can see you in the boxing ring with the nice do-rag on. You got the Run Pure gloves on. That'd be a good look for you there. So
absolutely.
We'll have to get that going for you. And we got Loosh25. He's in the chat. He said, when will we get Big T on an MLB show? Probably have to wait till basketball season's over. I think that's the case. Right, Draftcheat?
Yeah, I mean, I've been waiting to do a show with Big T this whole time. Can't get any swag. Can't get on the show with Big T. It's rough over here for DC. Bless you.
Sorry about that. My allergies are acting up. So gonna power through, and I'm doing double duty today. So we'll see how I do. Hopefully I can make it through the show. But you're fine. You got Draftcheat. You don't need Big T. Draftcheat has been crushing it over here at Run Pure Sports with all the pitchers. TitleTown's been crushing it as well with some MLB stuff. Title, give us your slate overview before we kind of dive in here.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna go down and dumpster dive for any pitchers today. There's clear top about 4 or 5 pitchers up top in Darvish, Kershaw, Giolito, Glasnow. You guess you can throw James Paxton in that list. I'll just dive right into it about pitching. My favorite is Giolito today. He threw 87 pitches last time out. I'm not worried about about how long his leash is. Where I am worried a little bit about Kershaw. He only threw 77. Paxton only threw 77 last time out. Paxton didn't throw my last time out. I'm sorry. He's making his first start. I am worried about his length though, because he's shown to have injury problems in the past. I don't see him pitching more than 5 innings, and he has a tough matchup against the White Sox too. So I'm throwing him right out of my player pool right away. And then Kershaw too. I don't love this spot for Kershaw. He's 9.5 on DraftKings, 9K on FanDuel. I just can't click his name over Darvish, over Giolito, over Glasnow on DraftKings. Glasnow on FanDuel is 10.7. That price is way too much for me. 9.1 on DraftKings though. He only threw 77 pitches. That's what I was trying to say instead of Paxton. Glasnow only threw 77 last time. I know someone in Discord mentioned, I think it was UDC, that he had a little back tightness, and that could have been part of the reason. I still don't think we see him go above 90 today, but he has a ton of upside, which he showed last time out, even for mid-80s pitches. So he's going to be in my player pool. I rank him Giolito, Darvish, and then Glasnow for me. And I'm not going to go to any other pitchers. I'm keeping it very, very short, my player pool, because we have hitting spots with good value that I like. So that's kind of how I'm breaking down pitching, and no need to go down low for me.
All right. Well, TitleTown just jumped right into it. He heard what you said, DC. He didn't want to mess around. And Title's not going to mention, sex stories. Like, you're good here with Title. He's going to keep it strictly business. So give us the strict business, right? What are we doing at pitcher? I heard you on the podcast talking with G Risen, as he's never corrected me. I want to clarify, DC, before we dive into pitching. I've always called him G Risen, right? He's never said it's G Risen. And so if you're never going to correct me, I'm just going to keep calling you your name, right? So that's on him. It's not on me. Never once have I been corrected, DC.
Absolutely. He's got to put his foot down at some point. So, yeah, fun podcast there. I actually think there's a lot of pitchers in play today. Title, you asked him for the slate overview, and he just broke down the entire pitching slate. But, hey, that's the TitleTown. He's getting down to business. You like to see it. I think there's a lot of guys to talk about. So I do agree with Title. Clearly the number one pitcher for me today is Giolito. We're seeing these pitchers come back around a second time, right? So we saw most of these guys on opening day on Thursday. They've had their 4 days of rest. Now we're going to get to see them a second time, which is great because we've got some data on these guys. We can see, how they looked in their first start, how their velocity was, the swinging strike rate, all that stuff. Of all the pitchers that kind of debuted, especially the aces, I was most impressed by Giolito, who just looked absolutely phenomenal. I think he struck out 5 of the first 6 guys he faced, ran into a little bit of trouble, I think, in the 6th inning, but overall, a 75% first pitch strike rate. His velocity was up. He was flashing a new pitch, 20% swinging strike rate, which is about as high as you'll see a pitcher go over a full start. So he was amazing. And then he gets a Mariners team that, strikes out a ton. Seattle is one of the best strikeout parks of all the parks in baseball. 87 pitches. I think he would have gone more if he didn't run into trouble in that 6th inning. So, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Giolito up over 100 pitches here or very close to it. He is the number one option for me. I have Glasnow over Darvish. Glasnow was very high on him. His opener, he was fantastic. Like we mentioned, might have been pulled a little bit early just due to some mild back tightness. Again, we're not completely sure about that, but could have been a factor because he was just cruising and got pulled after 75 pitches. I would expect more today. I'm not scared of this Boston lineup. They haven't been hitting, and a ton of strikeouts in that lineup as well. So I have Glasnow second, and just in terms of raw fantasy points, Darvish third, and then a pretty big drop off if we're just talking projections, raw fantasy point production. So Giolito 1, Glasnow 2, Darvish 3. Darvish didn't look super great in that opening outing, but good matchup here at home against San Francisco.
Yeah, so I've really gone back and forth with pitching. Like at first, once Glasnow threw his first game, I was like, I had some exposure, but I didn't have it all, right? And I was like, next time he's on the mound, I'm definitely throwing him out there. And now I'm questioning it because I think that Giolito is my guy today. I feel like it's similar to yesterday how you said DeGrom was your guy. And I think yesterday it was way more clear cut, right? There's other options. And you can make a strong case for a Darvish against San Francisco team, but Draftcheat, San Francisco has been better, right? They're definitely, I'd say they're underrated, right? As a whole hitting. But I think Giolito is the guy. I see some projections like Darvish better. And you know how baseball projections can be. I think, though, you just go with Giolito and you call it a day. Is it similar to yesterday with DeGrom?
Yeah, I think that's for me, Giolito clearly the best option on this slate. He's going to be in most of my lineups. But like we mentioned, there are other ways to go. I mean, Glasnow could have an outstanding outing, as could Darvish. You talked about San Francisco. They look pretty good so far, but I think they're going to be much, much better against left-handed pitching. Guys like Wilmer Flores, Evan Longoria, Buster Posey, all those guys swing the bat much better against lefties. Obviously, Darvish throwing from the right side. So that knocked me down a little bit on him, and he's more expensive too, right? And if you're trying to squeeze in the best bats possible, that can be a hindrance. There are other options, though. So a couple guys that I'm considering. Marcus Stroman has looked fantastic this spring. He's expensive at 8,600 and traditionally hasn't been a huge strikeout guy, but you could certainly go there. Title mentioned he kind of was crossing off James Paxton. I get it. Paxton was really bad last year, and he's kind of been banged up a little bit, but he's back in Seattle where he was, a legitimate ace. And in his last spring start, he went nearly 5 innings, struck out 9 guys. So he ran that pitch count up pretty high. He should be good to go. And I know Chicago's not a team that we pick on, but I do like Paxton a little bit at home here. I think he'll be contrarian, especially in that same game against Giolito because he's an underdog. Freddie Peralta.
Can you throw out, so what, 85 pitches? You think that's like 85, 90? Throw out a number that you think Paxton, just say he's cruising. Because I mean, when Paxton stuff's on, he's one of the best pitchers. His stuff's nasty. It is a tougher matchup, but just say he is rolling maybe 1 earned going into the 6th inning at 75 pitches. You think he's coming out to throw the 6?
I think so. Yeah, I think he could throw between 80 and 90. But I will say, in general, the pitching plays have gone really well. But in general, pitchers as a whole have pitched fewer pitches in these opening starts than I kind of have expected. So I'm a little hesitant to put that number too high for a guy making his debut and coming off of an injury-riddled season. Freddie Peralta has looked fantastic in spring. He's got a new slider or a better slider. He made one relief appearance against the Twins, so he's their fifth starter. I think that was back on Thursday or Friday. Struck out all 6 Twins that he faced. I think he's got some significant upside against the Chicago Cubs. I think he'll go overlooked. And then, of course, my guy Herman Marquez pitching in Colorado. Again, we don't like rostering Coors pitchers in general, but we've seen Marquez have a number of great games over his career in Colorado. And this is about, Title mentioned the weather here. It's going to be, 40 to 50 degrees with 15-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from center field in Coors Field. The wind, it doesn't make a huge difference at all stadiums, but it really, really does in Coors Field. So, the Diamondbacks don't have the best lineup. I could see Marquez spinning a gem here. 7K on DraftKings, you'll get him low owned. And, with so many great pitchers on this slate, it's kind of hard to get to him, when you can get up to a Giolito or a Darvish or a Kershaw or a Glasnow, but we'll get low ownership because of that. So I'll have at least some exposure to Herman Marquez here.
Yeah, you love yourself some Herman Marquez. Right?
I do. It's a I would say soft spot, maybe a weak spot. Call it what you want, but yeah, I do like Herman Marquez. I love him as a pitcher. Obviously, prefer him on the road, but this is about as good of a pitching environment as you'll get in Coors Field this entire year.
I will say, just monitor weather going up to the game too. I've seen that there could be a chance for delay.
I think it'll be fine, honestly, but yeah.
I'm no weather person. Whatever other people put out there. So I'd make sure to look into it because the weather is pretty nasty there.
All right. Well, guys, please hit that like, hit that subscribe on the video. We got Izzy in the chat, said 273 watching, 60 likes. That's weak. And so Izzy got us about 10 likes, 304 now. So guys, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We also got JJ in there. He said, I like this video on my 15 burners and only 66 likes. So slam that button. Guys, please hit the like, hit the subscribe. Draftcheat, right? We got to get our producer happy. We got to make everyone happy at Run Pure Sports, right?
Yeah, we need more likes than when Holden's on the show too.
And I also
great point there. Well, what is the number you shoot for?
Support your man Travis. Come on.
What have you shot for to give away the swag the past couple times?
150, I think it was what we did yesterday.
All right, so you did 150. We're gonna go 175 today, and
I like it.
We're gonna get more filing in here because you know what they're gonna see? They're gonna be like, "Oh, Holden's not on the show. I got to get on this show and watch because we got Draftcheat, we got TitleTown, we got Mangone. So more will be filing in. So we're going for 175, and we'll give away some swag." Taylor, we
also got Uncle T in the chat. Uncle T's on the playbook today. He says it's going to be up pretty soon. Watching the show and it'll be up. So go check out what Uncle T has to say about the slate. Always got some good points to be made.
Yep. And Uncle T will not only be on that, he will be with Chatter right now. He said, like if you think man going over Holden, he'll be with JSU on Wednesday. So you'll have Uncle T, you'll have JSU, and you'll have Big T. And they will be doing the PGA show, the Pin Seeker show, which they did it before the last major, and then Big T shipped all the money. So they're running it back with Uncle T. Should be a good time. You can also check out on Tuesday, which is tonight at 8:30, you will have Snyder, you will have AP, you will have Hoop, and then we'll be breaking down all the PGA content that you need for the Masters. And then also on the bet side, if you go to Run Pure Bets and subscribe there, later tonight, me, JJ, and Snyder, we're going to do a little betting breakdown for the whole event. So you got everything you need for the Masters. DC, I know you're more of a baseball guy, but I'm sure you're going to dabble in some of those prize pools, right?
Of course, yeah. And I've been kind of obviously knee deep in the baseball over this last week. So I'll be relying on the team at Run Pure for sure for kind of making out my lineups because not a lot of time to dig into the golf this week.
Yeah, Ted, I assume you'll be doing the same thing. You'll be leaning on Big T after the nice little Millie win. You got to trust what Big T's looking at.
Yeah, I play golf every week, usually cash, even in golf, but I'll throw in a couple lineups for sure. Get on Big T's core, Uncle T. I'll mix them all in. It's the Masters.
I'm mixing it up. I'm going with Uncle T this week over Big T. Big T can't win 2 in a row. I'm going with the Uncle T. We'll stay in the family. We're just switching it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's not about. Listen, if you're on the knee house, right? If you're on the knee house
Yeah.
family, that's a good place to be at. So
Yeah.
definitely staying there is definitely a good place to be. Hopefully the heater continues. I'm sure it will. Every night just pounding the screenshots. It's been great over here at Run Pure Sports. Draftcheat, I think, gave like his final breakdown. Give me your final thoughts on the pitching before we kind of move into the hitters.
Yeah, it's pretty clear for me. I'm just gonna stick with a very condensed Giolito. He was my favorite pitcher on the board. Darvish, I do have my second favorite, and then Glasnow third, just due to the fact I feel more comfortable with Darvish's leash. But I think Giolito, the clear top pitcher. I wouldn't say it's like DeGrom yesterday. I mean, there was really no other options around DeGrom. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see a Giolito not in the winning lineup today. If he's 50% owned in tournaments, I wouldn't play him. I mean, there's just other options like we talked about, but I don't know if he'll get quite that high. Cash games, Giolito, and then Darvish and Glasnow. Other than that, it's get different at hitters.
All right, DC, I'll kick one last question to you when it comes to the pitchers. I see a lot of umpires that have the hitters on it, right? Extreme hitters umpires and hitting umpires. Do you weigh that in your data when you're talking baseball? I calculate a little bit. I definitely think it's more of like, hey, when I look at stuff, it's like more of a lean. It's not like, oh, he has an extreme, hitters ump. I'm completely off him. How about you?
I do weigh it at the extreme. So there are some umpires that are kind of consistently great pitchers umpires every year, or great hitters umpires every year. But you can go overboard with it, even at the extremes. You're looking at, on average, about 3 called strikes that wouldn't be called strikes even at the extreme. So when you consider everything else that a pitcher can control and does on the mound, I think people can go overboard with that a little bit. So yeah, I certainly look at it, but I used to weigh it more than I currently do, because it used to be something that, 3-4 years ago, is like, nobody's looking at this. You could get maybe a little bit of an edge there. Now kind of everybody does. And you'll even see, like, seems to me ownership can sometimes sway based on umpires. I think people go at times a little bit overboard with it at this point.
Yep, I agree. I think I've gone overboard in the past, but I feel like I've adjusted it pretty good. And I don't see anything that sticks out amazingly. Like, I see some stuff, but again, it's like, It depends. Like, when Bill Miller's on the mound, I definitely take notice, right? Or not.
Exactly. Yeah, there are a few, but there's not that many that you need to take too much concern over it.
All right, let's dive in and let's talk about the catchers. Obviously, catcher is not a position that I love the roster too much, but hey, we got to play guys. And I've been doing well at catcher, so I can't complain. Over on FanDuel title, you don't have to play a catcher, right? So we'll go to you first, though. Talk about how you approach catchers in general on FanDuel.
Yeah, FanDuel, I mean, most times I don't play a catcher, but there's exceptions, like Will Smith opening weekend when they were in Coors. Will Smith is a stud. I mean, whatever position, he's just a really good hitter. I'll play Will Smith in Dodger stacks and in Coors and stuff like that, especially if this price is lower. But on a slate like today, no catcher stands out. I don't even look at them on FanDuel today at catcher.
See, I look at them a lot on FanDuel in tournaments, but I make sure there's good ones out there, right? Like, I make sure that, like, if I'm playing one, it's not like this absolutely dusty dude. Like, the guy's got to have power. It's got to be a good spot. And, like, one other thing I like to do is just put a catcher in the utility, because people won't do that. You could easily put a first baseman in the spot and then a catcher in utility. And I do that a lot with the White Sox, right? I do like a Jose Abreu with Grandal. That's something I would do a ton. DC, I know you play a little bit of FanDuel. What do you think of that? How do you approach the catcher position specifically on FanDuel?
Yeah, I think you guys both make good points. I mean, it's a way to get contrarian for sure, to get a catcher in your lineup. I think some people just like won't play a catcher no matter what. Just like, I don't know, like out of principle or something, which seems a little silly. But there are some guys that you could play at catcher, like Will Smith. Obviously prefer him, in a better ballpark than Oakland and against the lefty, but he's just one of the best hitters in baseball. I really do feel that way. Don't think I would do it tonight. The only guy I would consider on FanDuel at catcher tonight is our guy, Yermin Mercedes, who just comes through for us every single night. He's my top catcher, once you consider the value again today. He's 3,500 on DK. I think he's 2,600 on FanDuel. Again, I do like Paxton a little bit, but good matchup still, I think, for Mercedes against the lefties. So he would be the guy that I would consider at least on FanDuel, but in general, yeah. You're not going overboard and playing some scrub catcher on FanDuel just to get contrarian, I don't think.
That's what I mean. This slate's just gross at catcher. Like, you don't need it. Some slates you make, like, I agree, Travis, but today, like, who would you put at catcher in utility today and feel okay about?
I wouldn't hate going Grandal in tournaments if you were stacking the White Sox. I don't think it's a must, but if you wanted to get away with it, I think you could, if that makes sense.
All right, yeah.
Not
Wilson
not
Contreras.
It's definitely not the best day for it. I do prefer it on the days where we got the guys in like extreme like reverse splits kind of spots, or just spots where you expect them to be in a really good spot. Like Big T does it a lot too. I've seen it.
Yeah.
He'll put like a James McCann against a lefty and a Wilson Contreras against a lefty, right? And that can definitely be a little tasty combo. They definitely have some power and pop in them. So yeah, that's something that I'll look at. Let's go to DraftKings and talk the catcher though. We'll go to UDC. I'm keying on Omar Narvaez. I think he's the main guy I'm looking at. I don't know if the lineup came out though and he's in it or out of it, but expecting him to be in. DC, that is my main catcher. How about you?
Yeah, he's cheap and looks like good hitting weather again in Wrigley Field. So I have no problem with Narvaez. No lineup yet for the Brewers and Cubs, but I would expect him to be in there. Mercedes,
by the way, DC, for the people who want to just go overboard with the umpires, extreme hitters up. So I don't know if that's going to shift ownership today. Just something to mention.
Yeah, for sure. Narvaez is strong. I have 4 guys on my list here. Mercedes at the top of the list for me, 3,500 on DK, as I mentioned. Narvaez certainly made the list. Mike Zunino against Martin Perez, who is a fly ball pitcher in Boston. Zunino strikes out way too much, but he does have a lot of power. So I think you could use him probably at somewhat low ownership. And then assuming he's in the lineup again, we don't have all of these lineups quite yet. Victor Caratini in San Diego against Aaron Sanchez is cheap. And I just saw the Blue Jays lineup. So I'll mention one more guy. I assume he's a catcher. Alejandro Kirk hitting 9th for the Blue Jays, a rookie for them. The projections just love Alejandro Kirk, like the season-long projections. I think he can really hit 2,500 in Texas against Dane Dunning and that Texas bullpen. Looks like really good hitting weather in Texas as well. I think they're going to have the roof open. So I'm actually going to I'm going to change my number one catcher. I'm moving Alejandro Kirk up to number 1 on DraftKings. He's 2,500.
Hey, you said he's batting like last, correct?
Yep.
Which is fine, right? Like you don't. Of course, I would.
Especially a catcher, it's like whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's perfectly fine. I think take a flyer on that. Title, I'll go to you. So you play DraftKings too as well. So what do you do with the catcher position over there? I think it's more of a day to punt the position. I don't even want to spend up in tournaments. And the reason why is I want to get up to some pitchers. I want to get up to some bats. And of course, it'll be contrarian probably to spend up a catcher, but I just don't think it's the right call today when you think of roster construction.
Yeah, I like Giolito. I like Darvish, Glass. Now you need to punt some places, and catcher's always a position that I'm fine punting. Narvaez is my favorite right now too. If he does crack the lineup, like DC said, we don't have too many lineups, but the best hitting weather on the slate in Chicago. I like Narvaez in this spot. If he's in the 7 hole, which is projected, had a homer yesterday, he'll get some ownership, but 2.7K, you can do a lot worse. That Kirk guy, 2.5K. I don't know much about him at all, but
he can hit. He can really hit. Trust me.
Yeah. I mean, if he can hit, I'm fine. I'm fine. I mean, 9th, I don't care where the catcher's bad. He's 2.5K, one of the highest team totals on the slate. Him and Narvaez would be my 2 favorites. And I like Caratini in tournaments. If you have that extra salary, 3.1K, I'm fine with, but just go all the way down, Kirk or Narvaez, and save, and they have upside.
Yeah, I'll definitely look at him as a save option if I need it. Someone I'll probably add to the MLB cash chart. So if you haven't checked it out over at Run Pure Sports, we give out, some of the guys you can plug in cash games, and you can definitely plug guys in tournaments too as one-offs. Just have to be careful, right? You got to make sure the ownership might not be too high, because sometimes DC, like you don't want to stack something up and then like eat the chalk. I would say you don't want to eat the chalk hitters of the most popular stack, right? Because if one of those guys goes off, there's likely a lot of correlation going on there, and that can cause some issues with your lineup, right?
Yeah, I've talked about this on previous shows a little bit, just a strategy of it where you don't want your one-offs to, like, if you're stacking a 5-man stack on DraftKings, you don't want your one-offs to come from another popular stack. It just doesn't make any sense, because if they go off, that stack's probably going to be doing pretty well in and of itself. So you got to have some strategy there if you can.
Yep. No, think that makes a ton of sense. And I love what TitleTown said about getting some Kirk exposure. So he's someone I'm definitely going to be looking deeper at. Guys, if you could please hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're at 389 watching. We're almost at 400. We need 175 likes and we're at 150. So, hey, we're doing good so far. We're trying to beat that number that Holden's been at. And, if you like me over Holden, hit that like button. So
how many times can I hit it?
Yeah, it should be at 396 right now, if we're being honest. 396 likes in the chat right now. So please, guys, hit that like. We'll be giving away some swag at 175. Title, we'll go on over to you to talk about the first base position on this slate. First base, it's one that it's not loaded. Yesterday wasn't even that loaded either, but there are options that we can go to at the first base position. At the top, you got Pete Alonso and the Mets. They're not the greatest stack in the world today, but there is some power and pop, and he is definitely someone that has it. We got Nate Lau. He is someone that I'm looking at in that Texas lineup. I definitely want to attack that Texas-Toronto game. What are you doing with the first base position today, Title?
Yeah, if you are going all the way up, Pete Alonso is my favorite. Chase Anderson has some reverse splits. Peter Alonso has a ton of power. He definitely could double down at any time. So I like him at 5K if you're going all the way up. Otherwise, I'd go in the mid-tier. Keston Hiura is 4K on DraftKings, only 2.7K on FanDuel. These Brewers are underpriced again. They didn't do very well yesterday, but they're too cheap. The ball's going to fly, or it's not going to fly, but it's about 70 in Chicago right now. I see winds slightly blowing out too. So it's good hitting weather for this time of year. And on this slate, Texas is the only other one. And here is too cheap at 4K, like a more 2.7K. If you want to go all the way down on FanDuel, there's Rowdy Tellez, 2.2K. He's in the 7 hole, but I like Toronto a lot. I think he'll be lower owned. So Tellez is my cheap punt on DraftKings or on FanDuel, and DraftKings too. He's only 3.2K. So, and CJ Cron, sorry, I missed him too. 3.7K in Coors against Weaver, who I'm not scared of at all. They have the highest team total on the slate. I like his power in this matchup too. So all the way up to Pete Alonso, Hiura and Cron in the more mid tier, and then Rowdy Tellez if you're going down.
Yep, Rowdy definitely makes sense if you want to get exposure to those Blue Jays. DC, how are you handling the first base position? Are you handing all the way up? Are you going to the mid-tier, or are you going all the way down?
I think you could go a number of different directions here, honestly. I agree with all the guys that Title mentioned. I think those guys are strong plays. I'll add Max Muncy to the mix. I talked about it yesterday. Low-owned Dodger stack, I think, is going to be a decent way to go. Would certainly include Muncy. We'll see if Bellinger is in there. He got banged up a little bit yesterday, so if he was out, I would have less interest in that stack overall. I like the Alonso call. Eric Hosmer against Aaron Sanchez, who could struggle against left-handed bats, I think is interesting. I love the Rowdy call. I really, really like the Blue Jays tonight. I could see them having a huge day. Vlad Guerrero, another option, but you can play him at third base as well if you're going Rowdy Tellez. And then someone that just popped up, Daniel Vogelbach, swinging from the left side against Albert Alzolay. Vogelbach, ton of power from the left side, just strikes out a ton. But like we mentioned, we really do like that Wrigley Field game with good weather and wind for hitting. Vogelbach hitting second in the lineup today for the Brewers. Might be pinch hit for if a lefty reliever comes in, but 2,800, he should get a couple chances to go deep, and I think he's got a pretty good chance to do so.
Yeah. I just saw the Brewers lineup out, so here didn't even make the lineup. Vogelbach's a very good cheap punt too.
Yep.
Like you just said, but yeah, scratch what I said about here. If he was in the lineup, I know people were saying that he hasn't done anything. He was 2.7K on FanDuel. Now he's out of the lineup, so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, no, definitely have to look at Vogelbach here now. Definitely someone I'll definitely be giving a strong look at. Obviously, like that game. Let's move on. Let's talk about the second base position, right? Because second base, again, it's not one that I love the roster. And we had a guy, right? He's not in the lineup anymore, right? We have no more Keston. He's out there. So we're going to look for some other plays. And Mr. Brandon Lau, you can get exposure to him over there on DraftKings. He's definitely someone that I will look at a little bit at the second base position. You can make a case for a Marcus Semien. Is he in the lineup, DC? Do we have him up there?
Yeah, I believe he's
lead off.
Yep.
All right, so he's definitely someone I'm going to be giving a strong look to. Didn't know if he would crack the lineup. Figured he would, but we got him there. We also have Mr. Josh Rojas, right? DC, you talked about him a little bit on the pod. He is against your boy, Mr. Herman Marquez. I'm sure you've looked into it a little bit. Talk about this second base position. I think it's a good spot to try and save some money. I'm not trying to spend all the way up, but I do think there are some good mid-tier options.
Yeah, I think Rojas is fine. 3,900 on DraftKings for him. I think he's much cheaper on FanDuel, if I recall correctly. Yeah, 3,000. Yeah, so he's solid. Assuming he's leading off, he usually does against righties. Been off to a slow start, so we'll see. But yeah, he's solid. I'm kind of leaning toward mostly fading Coors Field though, just kind of with the weather there. Not because I think it's going to get canceled. I'm pretty sure they're going to play, but just because I don't think it's going to be the normal Coors Field that we normally see tonight. So we'll see there. My favorite second baseman, at least on DraftKings, is Jake Cronenworth. He was my play of the day yesterday. He was okay. He had 3 hits, but I think they were all singles, so didn't have a huge game. But I do like him a bunch. I think he's 3,600, 3,300 on FanDuel. So he's the guy I'm looking at second base. Again, I do kind of like, especially these Padres lefties against Aaron Sanchez, who basically hasn't pitched in like a couple years due to injury. So I think the Padres could get to Sanchez. Cronenworth, my guy there. Other second baseman, Colton Wong. I assume he is leading off.
Yep, he is.
Yep. I don't love Wong in general, but I do like this matchup, like his lineup spot, like his price, like the weather. So he's certainly a solid play. Ryan McMahon in Coors Field. Again, if you want to go to Coors, I think he's a good cheap option. And then last guy for me on my list here is Gavin Lux. We'll see where he hits in the Dodgers lineup, but he's looked really, really good recently and is just I know you're a fan of him, Title, just a total stud. Not the greatest hitting environment, frankly, in Oakland, cold and a tough park anyway, but Gavin Lux a stud, and I'm certainly not scared of Chris Bassett on the hill. So Lux, the last guy on my list here.
Yep. No, I think a lot of those second basemen make sense. There's one guy you didn't mention. I'll ask Title about him, and then you can run through it. What about Nick Solak, right, Title? I think he's definitely in play. I like some of these Rangers. It's not my favorite spot in the world, but lefties can get to Tanner Roark, right? It's definitely a spot where I think you could go for a guy like Nick Solak for cheap. What are you doing with him, and what are you doing with the second base position today?
Yeah, DraftKings 3.1K. He's batting in the 5 hole. I like Nick Solak in the spot. I agree with what you said in the beginning, where it's not a position you're going to pay up for. There's a lot of good, solid hitters and solid lineup spots at the bottom. So Solak, Colton Wong, like DC mentioned, 3.3K batting leadoff. I like that. Rojas, 3.9K on DraftKings, batting leadoff we're expecting in Coors. So I like going there. If Gavin Lux does crack the lineup, like DC said, I'm always fine going there. And to be honest, I want Bellinger to be out because then it makes this Dodgers stack even cheaper,
Sure.
where you can still pay up at pitcher. And I think they're going to be very sneaky with like Coors is going to get some ownership like they always do. The Brewers are cheap. Texas is cheap. So I think the Dodgers are going to be a sneaky stack. And if Bellinger's out, it's easier to stack them up with higher pitching. Hope Gavin Lux hits the lineup. On FanDuel, Kevin Biggio is only 2.7K. in the 2 hole. I love Toronto. It's very easy to get a piece of that lineup for that price tag. So he'd be my favorite over on FanDuel. Yeah, it's definitely a pay down position. Solak, Wong, and then I like Biggio on FanDuel.
Yeah, no, yep. Think that all makes sense. Definitely like myself some Biggio here. Draftcheat. So I want to ask you this. So we're at 175 likes already. We already got to 184. We want to get those likes and subscribes up, right? We definitely want to. We need to pick someone though, and I want to find a way to pick them. And my idea was let's center this around Holden. So if Holden wasn't working for Run Pure Sports, what would his job be? What would he be doing for a living, right? Like, give us your best guess. Of course, don't give us the straight chalk, right? Like, we want something a little off the board that's like creative as well, right, Draftcheat?
Yeah, and don't spam the chat. Submit your answer. We'll see it. Don't be an asshole and put it in there 25 times to get the swag. So, especially when we do the big ticket giveaways, and that's when people really go wild with that stuff. But yeah, I like this. I like this topic, and I'm sure we'll get some pretty amusing answers for Holden's other job.
Yeah, and of course, like male stripper, right? Don't just put that. Like let's be a little creative with it. Of course that would be, I wouldn't be surprised if Holden was doing that, trying to get a quick buck. But
don't be all chalky like Title with the male stripper answers.
Yeah, Title. You agree? We gotta get some good creative answers from the chat here.
Yeah, sure. Don't be chalky. Let's hear something good. Let's keep it a little bit respectable though. But
I'm that too. I want it because if you can find a funny, respectable one, like that would be good, right? Like I would love to envision what he could be doing. So that'll be fun to see what's going on there.
What would your job be, Mangone, if you weren't a DFS dude?
Oh man,
100%. You'd be an auctioneer for sure. He speaks so fast. Going up.
Yeah, I could crush the auctioneer. Definitely could do that. I did do sales before I started doing DFS. I sold truck navigation software, and I did not enjoy it. It was awful.
Yeah.
Glad to be doing some DFS stuff. But auctioneer is definitely a great answer title. That's what I think I would do. What about you, DC? What would you be doing?
I'd probably be dead somewhere, honestly. I don't know.
You'd be Jake Paul, like amateur boxing people.
Yeah, there we go. I'd be lining up to face Ben Askren in a couple days here.
The hothead weasel, that'd be your name too.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be a good shtick. You'd be running with that. So
yeah.
Chat's on fire. Just keep firing some comments. We'll pick one for sure. All three of us will be looking for one throughout the show. We talked about the shortstop, or we talked about second base. Let's talk about third base now a little more. It's not a deep position today. I do think it's normally a spot where I like to get my power bats in there. One of them I think is Vlad Guerrero, right? And it's another Blue Jay. I like the Blue Jays today. They're definitely a strong contender for me. We also got Travis Shaw, who got put in the lineup at the 4-hole, right? And if you've been playing DFS for a while, Travis Shaw is not a fun roster title. You're a Brewers fan, so you understand the Travis Shaw signing or trade, however they got him, it is not worked out. But, the numbers say the power's there, all that stuff. What are you doing with the third base spot title?
Yeah, I mean, Travis Shaw, man, I could talk about this guy for days. 3.9K on DraftKings, though. They price somewhere I don't need him. Like, I'll find the 500 to get Vlad for sure in a better matchup. So I'm not going Shaw at 3.9K, a little more expensive than I want. If you're full stacking the Brewers, fine. He's in the 4-hole today. He has power, but give me Vlad at third base. I think he's a clear top play. You can go Biggio on DraftKings for 100 more than Vlad, and I think his ownership's going to be a lot less. I think Vlad eats up most of it. Very easy pivot. I like going there. And that just shows how good of a play he is on FanDuel, Biggio, because he's 2.7K. He's also third base eligible. Vlad's only 3K on draft or on FanDuel, third base eligible. If Edwin Rios breaks the lineup wherever he's hitting to, he's 2.1K on FanDuel. And I like the Dodgers as a sneaky stack with DC too. So I'd have some interest there, but it's the Toronto guys for me. I think they're in the best spot. We talk about paying down at catcher, paying down at second base. This is a spot you can go up a little bit, and it's not breaking the bank either in the 5Ks.
Yep, you can go up for those guys, and you can go up for some other guys, right? Like Manny Machado, he's going to have to do some heavy lifting today for the Padres, and the Padres are definitely going to get overlooked because that lineup is going to be watered down. You got Chris Bryant at the top two, Draftcheat, right? Like you can easily go to him. He's someone that definitely makes sense with the wind blowing out and everything. Like this is definitely a spot where Chris Bryant could work. It's not a lefty, but hey, Chris Bryant is definitely in play here. What are you doing at the third base spot here, DC?
Yeah, this is my least favorite position tonight. There's not a ton of guys that I really like. I mean, I was going to mention Kevin Biggio as certainly an option at 4,500 on DraftKings, and that just lets you know how strong of a play he is over at FanDuel for 2,700, right? 1,800 less. Anytime you get that big of a difference on a player that we like over at DraftKings, Biggio, if you're playing cash games at FanDuel, I think should be in your lineup. Vlad Guerrero has looked incredible. I mean, breakout season for him perhaps coming here. I think he's a great option. So both Blue Jays guys, either or, are good plays. Travis Shaw, hitting cleanup. I think he's been up and down, kind of throughout his career. He has had some big seasons. I think the fact that the Brewers are hitting him cleanup lets you know they still think there's something left there. So that's encouraging for me with Shaw. I don't mind him. Obviously, that's one of the games to target. I don't know if we have a Rays lineup. Yeah, we do. Yeah, Yandy Diaz leading off for the Rays against Martin Perez. That's Perez is the guy I want to target. Again, not the best hitting weather in Boston, but a good hitting park in general. I kind of like, actually, Rays stack is pretty interesting here. We'll talk about that when we get there. Other guys, Title mentioned Edwin Rios for the Dodgers. I think he's a good option. And then Ryan McMahon mentioned him at second base, can play him at third as well. I think he's hitting sixth for the Rockies in Coors Field against Luke Weaver, who's not any good. So yeah, a few guys you can play, but overall not the best position today.
Yeah, not the best position today, but there's still guys that I think I like a little bit. And you can get, I don't know if you said him, DC, but you talk about the Rays. Mike, I'm going to butcher the name, Brousseau or
yeah, Brousseau. Yeah, I mean, Diaz and Brousseau, both pretty good plays at third base. Yep.
2.1K on FanDuel too,
Yeah.
batting third. That's way too cheap. I was going to mention him too. Ray stack definitely is. I mean, it's too cheap. I like that call too. And I think they do get a little overlooked because people always play Coors and the better game environment. So I do like that call.
Yeah, and I will say, if you don't like the third base position, right, and let's say on FanDuel you want to just go Mike Brousseau, right, you can go Vlad Guerrero at your first base spot and go with utility. So, Title, is that something you do sometimes?
Yeah, it makes it easy to, I mean, now that they have dual position eligibility, I didn't love that. I thought that was one of the differences that FanDuel DraftKings should have kept. I like when there are differences on the site, but it now allows you to stack easier full teams, get 4 and 4 stacks because you can roster different guys at different positions and make stacks work more. So that's something I definitely focus on.
Yeah, something I definitely I like it. I'm the other way. I like it. I like that they gave us that a little bit of flexibility. It's not a lot, but it's something. I will say that's one thing I want to be doing. It hurt my White Sox stacks, Title, right? Like I couldn't play Grandal and Abreu and all these guys. So now I might be able to get.
That was part of the fun, I thought, though. Now you can get, that was one of the differences between the two sites. But yeah, some people like it. It's easier to stack now and get the guys you want because you can roster them at more positions.
Yeah, Title. I don't want just some White Sox. I want all the White Sox. That's how I
know.
I want them all.
I know.
Jam them into my lineups. Actually, the stat I saw today was, I know it's James Paxton isn't someone you want to pick on, but the White Sox, do you guys know how many games against a lefty they have won in a row?
13.
All right, DC, what's your guess?
I'm going 15.
20. They have won 20 games in a row against a starting left-handed pitcher because lefties against the White Sox, it doesn't work out well. And
I'm taking Paxton off my list if it's 20 in a row.
It's a big number, so we'll have to see. Obviously, you can still get the strikeouts, right? I mean, you wouldn't be shocked if James Paxton gave up like 2 or 3 home runs and struck out 9. Would not shock me at all. That would be a stat line that could happen. And first price, it could work out if obviously you get all the bats right. But that's how the White Sox roll, man. They mash lefties. Let's move on and let's talk about the shortstop position. DC, I heard you mention on the podcast, you and G Risen, you guys said you typically spend up at your shortstop position, right? And I agree. I think it's a good idea too, because it is loaded right now at the shortstop position. I mean, you look in this league, there are so many good hitting shortstops. This slate, there's not a ton of amazing ones, right? So Francisco Lindor is solid, but the matchup's not incredible. You're not like jumping to play him. Trevor Story, he's in a fine spot, but it's not this spot that you're jumping to roster him as well. You got Bo Bichetti we talked about. You got Corey Seager, who obviously makes some sense if you want to jam him in there. You got Kiner Falefa if you're trying to go with the Texas guys in that game. Obviously good hitting weather. Not the best spot in the world, but he's someone that you can look at. Are you spending all the way up or are you spending down today, DC?
I don't really see many cheap guys that I want to roster here. So even though the expensive guys don't have necessarily the best possible spots or the best possible matchups, I still think I want to spend up in general. Corey Seager remains my top guy. I think he's been my top shortstop pretty much every single slate so far. He's just so locked in right now. Such a good hitter. We saw him do it last year. I really think he is in contention for just the best overall kind of pure hitter in baseball at this point in time. So Chris Bassett, give me some more Corey Seager. He's gone off every single game so far, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. Story is fine, but I do prefer him against the lefties. Obviously, we would prefer better weather. Still, if you want to use Story in Coors Field, no issue with that. I do like Lindor against Chase Anderson. Chase Anderson, he's okay against lefties, but he's just not a very good pitcher in general. So I think Lindor is a solid guy. Talked about Josh Rojas. That's pretty much it for me. I don't really have anybody written down here below that $3,900 price tag for Rojas. So I guess I'm spending at shortstop today. Pretty tight pool overall. I don't see a ton of value options, to be honest.
All right, Title, well, you love Coors Field, and we got Trevor Story in Coors Field, and DC said it pretty good. I think you need to be spending up at shortstop possibly today to get a bat. What are you doing with a guy like Trevor Story? Is he your top spend, or are you going somewhere else?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I'm obviously a huge Coors guy, but today I'm not as high on them as normal slate, just because the weather does offset the park pretty much. So I'm fine with Trevor Story, but I think he's going to be over-owned in this spot. So I think like going to Seager in tournaments, as DC said, it's the best hitter in baseball. I mean, Trout's the best hitter in baseball. Seager's one of the best hitters in baseball, best hitter at this position, and you get him at low ownership. I think he'll be in the single digits because he's very expensive. People are going to pay up at pitching. So give me a Seager in this Dodger stack too at low ownership. And I won't have Story in tournaments. I like Bo Bichette a lot. He's 4.7K on DraftKings, only 3K on FanDuel. I mean, FanDuel, you can pretty much get anyone today, but Bo Bichette, love the spot. I love Toronto. They're my favorite stack on the slate. Willie Adames is 3.8K on DraftKings, and he's only 2.2K on FanDuel. He's in the 6 hole against the lefty. I like the stack as well. Tampa is a very affordable stack. I like this matchup, so I'm fine with him if you want to go lower.
Yep.
Rojas, like you mentioned, 3.9K. I'd rather go Adames than Rojas for the 100 less. I like his upside more. I'd probably stay within those guys. Bichette is my favorite. Seager for tournaments because I think he's the lower owned, and then Adames if you're going down low, but still only 3.8K. You have to spend somewhat at this position.
Yep, definitely think you got to spend a little bit there. Guys, we're giving away some swag for 175 likes, and in the chat, what we're doing is we're basically saying what we think Holden's job would be if he wasn't with Run Pure Sports. So, DC, are there any leaders in the clubhouse so far? I mean, we got some good ones. I think one of my favorites was, and they suggested it as Title's job, which it should be Holden's job. I gotta find it again. Oh, so it said title would be Paul Pierce's personal video graphic. That would be Holden's job. Like, that is the perfect job. I would not be surprised if Holden was the guy holding the videos up for Paul Pierce during the IG Live, right? Right, DC?
That's a pretty good one. Yeah,
I'd be on the poker table. There's no way I'd be doing that job. Holden, he definitely would be.
Yeah, so that's fair. He said title though, so that's my leader in the clubhouse. I don't know, do you guys have a leader right now, or is that the best one we got?
I like that one. We'll give it a pass for calling it Title's job.
Yeah, it was too good because just the image of thinking of Holden just holding the kid, right? It was the creativity I was looking for. Don't just come out and say something that has to do with sex and all that. Find a job that's creative that we would surprise us. So that's the winner right now, but we'll see if we can get it there. That is Adam Hollerich. So far you are the leader, but we'll have to see. I'll say this: if we get this up to what's it got to be, DC? We're at 443 likes. We want to make it 300. We might get 275. What do you want to do with the number?
How many likes do we have right now?
223.
Yeah, I think we can get to 275.
All right, 275. We'll pick another person, and then we'll give away some swag there, and then we'll also try to get DC, right? Big T's got to at least throw some of the swag into you when he goes to FedEx, right, DC?
I would hope so. I don't know how many. I mean, I don't know how many days I got to nail these pitching packs before I can get an RPS shirt over here. Come on.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to hit him up and make sure that happens. But let's go on. Let's talk about the outfield position, and let's talk about Manuel Margot. Right, he got put into the lineup. He is batting fourth. Title, I'll go to you first. What are you doing with the outfielders, and what do you think of Margot now with him starting in the 4 hole?
Yeah, I don't mind Margot. I mean, he is 3.9K though, so he's not in the 2Ks or the low 3s, but I'm fine with that price tag if you land on him. There's also, I mean, there's a good amount of cheap outfielders that I like, but we'll start with Joey Gallo at 4.2K. I mean, he's just been absolutely crushing the ball. DC was on him earlier in the year too. Definitely has not disappointed. This price tag's still too cheap for me at 4.2K. David Dahl, 3.5K. I like that mini stack 2-3. They got Solak in the 5 hole too. Texas just makes a lot of sense. Good hitting weather. One of my favorite stacks. And that's why I'm not as high on Coors today as I usually am, because I do like Texas more. I like Toronto more. I even like Tampa more. And then the Dodgers for tournaments and stuff. So that's how I'm approaching it. Dahl, Gallo, I like a lot. If you want to go down more, I mean, you have Avi Garcia at 2.9K on DraftKings. Ronald Guzman batting 6 too. I like him against Rorak. I'm not scared of him. Very cheap if you want to punt. Then you can go to Teoscar Hernandez, 4.2K, and get a piece of that Toronto game. I'm mainly going to just focus on my stacks, Toronto, Tampa Bay, Texas, and build my outfield like that rather than just one-offing. Like, I'm not going to play Yelich if I'm not going to play the Brewers and stuff like that. So going to be a part of my stacks. I like the Texas guys the most. Then I like mixing in the Tampa, Toronto guys.
All right, DC, I'll head on over to you. So one thing I like to do sometimes, and I don't know if it's contrarian anymore, but I used to do it back in the day. I would just load up my outfield with like everyone from the same team if I liked all the outfielders, right? So like an example, you do Avisel Garcia, Christian Yelich, and Jackie Bradley Jr., right? And I just feel like people naturally do not even do that in tournaments because they think it's uncomfortable, right? They want to have their favorite one-off, right? They want their Nelson Cruzes or their Mike Trouts. They want to mix in that power bat from the outfield. So that's a strategy I use in tournaments. Is that something you use? And who are the outfielders you're looking at here?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. Obviously, Joey Gallo, you could make an argument, I think, for him on this slate as the top overall player, maybe, especially, I mean, an outfielder for sure. 4,200, he's just too cheap. Tremendous weather in Texas. He's been on fire, so much power. Love taking lefties against Tanner Roark. So Gallo, definitely going to be in my core and on my main teams. Rosa Reyna, a little bit of a slow start for him, but we saw what he could do last postseason. Tremendous hitter. Again, that Tampa stack kind of standing out to me with the lineup they rolled out there, along with Manny Margot, as you mentioned, Rousseau. So just some really good options from Tampa Bay. But good cheap options too. I think you can kind of go all over the board with outfield. Sam Hilliard, 2,600 in Coors Field, hitting 7th. He's got power and speed, so a really good upside play against Luke Weaver. If you're not on Tyler Glasnow, I really like Franchi Cordero as maybe a less than 1% owned play. Was on him yesterday as well, had a good game. He's got a lot of power, a lot of speed. Both of those things work against Glasnow. Again, could easily strike out a couple times too, but if he connects with one, he's got a good chance to go yard. And I think he'll steal for sure if he gets on base against Glasnow. So Franchi Cordero, a good super contrarian play if you want to go in that direction. Christian Yelich, hard to go wrong there, of course. I don't think I'd pay up for Blackman today in Coors, but you could. And an Ian Happ, I like quite a bit. We don't have the Chicago Cubs lineup, but I'd be very surprised if he wasn't leading off. Good weather there. He's got a lot of power, especially from the left side. And Freddie Peralta, who I do think could be in line for a big season, still going to give up a ton of home runs because he just throws so many fastballs. So Ian Happ, I think, has got a very, very good chance to go yard off of Peralta in that Brewers bullpen as well.
I'll also mention 2 more in Coors Field bats. I mean, Coors is so cheap today on DraftKings. That's why I think they get like Tapia.
I don't think they're going to be super heavily owned because of the low price tags, which makes me want to fade it a little bit.
And that's what I'm thinking that exact thing in tournaments too, because you can pay up at pitcher and still stack Coors. Tapia is in the leadoff hole at 3.4K. David Peralta is supposed to be in the 4 hole at 3.7K. Rojas is really cheap. Like, you can get so many pieces of this Coors game in tournaments, which people are just naturally going to do. So I'm with you in tournaments today. I know that's very rare of title to say, but I'm not on Coors in tournaments.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up fading it too. But I mean, just for the sake of the show, you have to mention Sam Hilliard at 2,600 in Coors Field, right? It's just like,
all those guys are just,
it's a little ridiculous. I don't know why he's so cheap, but Tapia, Hilliard, I expect to be in very popular. I think ownership will be spread out a little bit on the slate, especially at hitting, because there is just a lot of places you can go. I mean, we've mentioned, 15 outfilders that are strong plays. So I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about ownership. But it doesn't mean that you want to play the most popular plays, right? When there's so many good plays. So you can kind of, I guess, look at both sides of the coin there.
I just honestly don't even think Coors is I don't think it's going to be the top run producing spot of the slate. That's why if they're going to be one of the top stacks, I don't care if I only get 2x less ownership for Texas or whatever. I mean, I'll take it because I think they're in better spots.
I'm with you. Yep, I agree.
Title, do you think you want to spend up or down more at outfield? Because I do think it's a better spend down spot on this slate. There's not as many great spend up outfielders. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah. So how I've been looking at a slate overview, I guess. Pitcher, we want to go up. Catcher, we're looking down. First base, there's good options in all 3 tiers. So that'll be one of the spots to go later. Second base, we go down. Third base, we like going down or to the mid tier with Vlad. Shortstop up, and then outfield, I expect to land, I'll have a Joey Gallo who's in the mid 4s, probably 1 punt or something. But you can also, I think outfield, you can either go up. It's like we said, there's so many good options. It depends. I'm going to fill outfield out last though, outside of 1 or 2 pieces, just because I know shortstop, I want to go up. I know catcher, I want to go down. I know second, I want to go down. So I think it's going to be a punt, a mid tier. And then I think you'll be able to get an upper tier guy too.
Yeah, DC, I don't think it's a prioritize my outfielders night. I think there's some good options, right? But I don't think there's guys I'm just absolutely lock and loading in my lineups. What do you think?
I agree with you. I'm playing 10 lineups on DraftKings, and I think I'll have I generally play a pretty tight player pool, but at outfield, I think I'll have, 10 or 12 guys in kind of just mixing and matching based on obviously the correlation and who I'm pitching and all that stuff. So yeah, I think, there's good options at the top, middle, and at the, at the lower pricing. And so I think what Title said, maybe fill out outfield last, get the infield positions just look more scarce to me, where I don't want to punt at shortstop, right? I'm going to spend up there. I'll find an outfielder, a cheap outfielder if I need one, at a shortstop position rather than like a third base position, or rather than the outfield position. So yeah, I think you can spend down there for sure. Maybe make it your least priority when you're making out your final lineups.
I think it's one more important note to mention for baseball, especially, is you don't need to look at salary when you're building lineups. And like if your lineup has 1,500 left over and you have your main stack and your secondary stack that you like, that 1,500 is irrelevant. I mean, because it's priced based on the spot they're in against the pitcher. Like weather's not considered, because these are made the day before with the pricing algorithms.
It happens all the time in baseball where a $3,000 hitter on DraftKings is the number one scorer on the slate all the time.
I mean, a double dong will do it for you.
Exactly. And anybody, not anybody, but the majority of players have that kind of upside, especially, anyone that we're talking about as a possibility at outfield has that kind of upside. They really do. So it's not like basketball where you're going to get some random scrub that's going to put up 65 fantasy points and beat Russell Westbrook, right? So
Maxi Kleber is not outscoring Giannis at power forward. You can get Tapia can outscore Trout very easily any day. I mean, 0 for 5 is in the realm of possibilities for anybody.
Yeah, so that's in basketball. If I have like 600 or 500 left over, I'm like scrapping to find an upgrade somewhere. Baseball, it's hard to remind yourself that you don't have to do that, but it's important, especially if you've been playing basketball for 3 or 4 months now. When you transition to baseball, leaving salary on the table, not a big deal at all. The one place that you could maybe upgrade would be pitcher, I would say. But if you already have the 2 pitchers that you like and you got money left over, just leave your lineup as is.
It'll make you unique in tournaments.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure. We got people in the chat. They're asking the roof. Steve Anthony said the roof is closed. The roof is not closed. I just looked for the tweet. So unless something else came in 26 minutes ago, but I see
Texas.
The roof is open.
Yeah, Texas. He's talking.
That roof will be open.
It's going to be high 70s. I don't know why the roof would be closed necessarily. You know what I mean? It's like it's about as nice as weather you're going to get. So
it'll definitely be open. Guys, I do want to mention our partnership that we have going on with Superdraft. All you got to do is use the code RUNCURE. You get a $100 deposit match bonus. Head on over to Superdraft. You can play NBA, you can play MLB, all this stuff over there. They got a nice little multiplier there. You can use all of our core plays over at RunCure Sports to help you build out those super draft lineups. There's no salary cap, right? So you just get the multiplier. For instance, if you like one of these cheap guys there, right? Like let's say Mike Rousseau, he's 2.1K on FanDuel. Let's say he's got a nice multiplier over on Superdraft. You can head on over there, hit him, and if he hits that home run, right, his home run is more valuable than Mike Trout's, right, TC?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that just kind of a piggyback to what we were talking. If we're saying you can leave salary on the table, and you can in DraftKings GPPs, when you go to Superdraft, the first thing you should be doing is scrolling all the way to the bottom to looking at the 2x to like 1.7x guys and trying to find an upside down there if you're trying to take down a tournament.
Yeah, definitely a good thing to check out over at Superdraft. Also want to mention DC, he does the podcast every day, so check that out. He gets the first look with all different people, right? He had Risen yesterday, his Uncle T. He's got tons of people on there, so be sure to check that out on all of the platforms where we do, podcasts, right? Anywhere you can find it, Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, just find it. You will be able to listen to all of the great MLB content. I got to listen to it today, and it was a great listen. We need about 30 more likes. We got to get to 275 to be able to give away another piece of swag. So hit that like, hit that subscribe, and keep putting in your answers for, basically jobs that Holden would have. There's one leader in the clubhouse right now. So if we get to 275, we'll probably pick another. We're at that time of the show. This is my first MLB show, right? So I've listened to the shows. I haven't always made it to the end. what do we do? Is it dongs? Are we hitting dongs of the day? What's the whole thing we do here, DC?
We're rocking the stacks right now.
All right, so stacks first, which that's fair. Everyone loves the stacks. They're here for that. That's what we do in baseball. I'll tell you this, mine is Toronto right now. That's going to be my obviously chalkier stack, right? I'm not just going to sit there and only play them. I would say my under-owned stack of the day is going to be the Chicago White Sox against a lefty, right? I know it is Paxton, but he's going to be chalkier on DraftKings, right? And there's a little leverage opportunity there with doing that. So I'm going to take a shot on those White Sox. They're expensive too, and people aren't going up to them, and that'll make things difficult when you're kind of building out your lineup. So when things are uncomfortable while you're building your lineups out, people stop doing it. They go to the chalkier construction because it's harder to build. TitleTown, I'll go over to you. This might be the first show that we're on for Coors, and you don't mention Coors as your stack. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but hit me with it. What is your stacks of the day?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go for more tournaments wise. Like I love Toronto, obviously, but they're gonna be more chalky. Tournaments, I'm gonna go Texas as number 1, Tampa is number 2, and then the Dodgers is number 3. Mix in the higher end Dodgers. I mean, I hope Bellinger is out of this lineup, like I said earlier, to make them more affordable. Then you can full stack them and mix in the other two as well. So no Coors for me today. I don't know if there'll be another Coors slate that I don't mention though. So mark this down a history.
Yeah. So before we get to the stacks to UDC, we got someone in the chat. He said, I've changed my answer from homeless roaming in San Francisco to being the overly nice grocery store clerk who has worked there since high school. No doubt in my mind. So I agree. Grocery store clerk.
Not nice.
My problem is not even the nice part's my problem. Worked there since high school. Holden's not there for 30 years, right? Like he definitely did something with like an employee that he shouldn't have. He definitely like got in a fight with a customer and like they moved into a different grocery store. That definitely went down, right, DC?
Yeah, for sure. What about this one for Holden? An overly zealous Walmart greeter. I could see that.
I could see that too. Definitely. The Walmart greeter definitely makes some sense there. So we got to get those likes up to be able to give away one more piece of swag though. DC, give us the stacks of the day. Who do you got?
Yeah, I actually think there's a lot of different stacks that you could go to. It's not always going to be the case. You know, I'm not a guy that's going to name every team when I don't feel that way, but I do think you can mix up your stacks. And if you're playing a bunch of lineups, it's probably something I would do. You know, we didn't talk about the Mets. I think they're interesting against Chase Anderson. I'm with you guys on the Rays, both sides of the Blue Jays, Rangers. You could stack up that entire game if you wanted to. Of course, there's Coors Field, but I'll probably go away from that for the most part as well. The other team I'll mention is the Brewers against Edbert Alzolay. I think they're just leading off with 5 lefties in a row against Alzolay, who struggles against lefties, good hitting weather in Wrigley. So I think the Brewers are really sneaky. Mentioned the Dodgers previously. They're a great option always. You know, depending on who his lineup, but frankly, they aren't really capable of rolling out a bad lineup with their roster. Yeah, I mean, Chicago, if you want to get really weird, I doubt I'll do it myself, but they've got so much power. I know you're a big White Sox guy, Mangone. So yeah, just a number of different ways you can go. Going to be a pretty fun slate. I think my recommendation would be to keep your pitching pool a little bit tighter and spread out the bats if you're playing multiple lineups. I think that would be the way I would approach this one for the most part.
Yep, I think that makes sense. I also want to say Steve Anthony said the roof wasn't closed. He said roof closed in Texas kills run production. So I think I read it wrong, and it's probably my fault, Steve. I got all this medicine pumped in me because my allergies, and we're powering through. And I'm going to be on the NBA show too. I am doing double duty, so you'll see me on the Hardwood show. Spreading all the good mojo with JT and Big T. Should be a blast. I'm super excited to hang out with the guys and talk some NBA. DC, what's next though, right? We got to do the home runs, right? The low-owned home run calls. I know you've been killing those. Is that what's next on the list?
Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll get out of here. So a couple guys. I'll throw out Jock Peterson. We didn't mention him, but he's got a ton of power against righties. I guess that probably won't be super low-owned. Franchy Cordero, though, he's my favorite one if we're going super low-owned. I think he'll be – I'm going in the $18 DraftKings, you know, their big tournament. Franchy Cordero ownership, I'm going 0.3% on him tonight. And I'm calling him for not only a home run, a steal as well. Steal and home run for Franchy Cordero at less than 1% ownership.
That jack in a bag. So there you go for Franchy Cordero. Title, give us yours. What do you got? Willy
Adames in the 6 hole against Perez. I think he'll be low. lower owned. People don't like rostering people that are not in the top 5 of the lineup. So I like Tampa, Willy Adames.
All right, we'll go with Willy Adames, and so I'm gonna go with the White Sox, right? I have to, and I'm gonna go with the position that we talked about earlier. Shortstop is kind of gross today, right? Not my favorite. Let's go with Mr. Tim Anderson, right? In the one hole.
He's hurt. He's hurt.
He's hurt. When did he get hurt?
He pulled his hamstring on Sunday Night Baseball, so I doubt he'll be in there.
I'll admit, yesterday was crazy with basketball and everything. Did not even know today.
Oh, good. I'm just keeping you on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, Mango. I messed Depot and then Dahl back-to-back days.
Yeah. Well,
you definitely don't need to apologize.
See, I was wondering why Madrigal was popping in the lineup so much, right? Like, because he was popping so much when I was looking at projections. I was like, that makes no sense.
Don't worry, Uncle DC's on top of things. I got it.
Yep, that's our baseball guy.
I haven't built out my White Sox stack, but I reserved the entries, and I was excited to play him. So that's very unfortunate. And I didn't talk about him earlier, so I guess that's why. Let's go with Luis Robert as my guy, right? I love rostering him. He's definitely another White Sox that I like to roster. You can give Jose Abreu. He's a great one. And I'll probably make sure to have him in my stack, right? He will probably be in the White Sox stack that I end up building out. There's a lot of cheap guy that you can go to. Even Andrew Vaughn. He's another cheap guy. I know that you talked a little bit about DC that I'm kind of waiting to jump on. Maybe this will be the night that I jump on Mr. Andrew Vaughn well. But I'm going with Luis Robert as my low-owned stack because people are not spending up in the outfield. They're all spending down. I'm spending up for Luis Robert. So that wraps it up for all of us, guys. Give your final thoughts on the slate, DC.
Should be a good one. I think you can get away from Coors Field here if you want to. I do think we're going to see big pitching performances, particularly from Lucas Giolito. He's going to be chalky. I think you'll get 10 plus strikeouts out of him tonight. I like Glass now to shut down this Red Sox lineup for the most part. And yeah, if you want to get really contrarian, my guy Armand Marquez in Coors Field, I think is a solid way to go. Yeah, that's kind of it, I guess. A lot of options for stacks. So if you want to mix it up, I think this is a pretty good slate to do so.
Yeah, good slate to do it for sure. Like I said, White Sox, they're going to be fun tonight. We got tons of guys. The Padres, we didn't even talk about them a lot. Like, I think, Title, you said it really well at the top of the show. You said that there's going to be a lot of different ways you can go. People are not even going to Coors. And I think the ownership is condensing on Toronto and Texas the most. And from there, there's not a clear-cut, like, second spot that people are going to. And that makes some really fun slates. And it should be a good one. Lots of opportunity here in tournaments to take some stuff down. So I'm sure the Rum Pure Sports guys will be on top of all that. But we're going to get out of here. Thanks a lot for joining us. For me, Mango, and Title, and DC. See you later.
Good luck, everybody.